All right, welcome back. So last week we told you about a new Gallup poll that showed people who are married say they're actually happier than single. So I want to show you some of the research about this. I want to take a closer look at this data. The numbers actually go back to 2009. 2.5 million American adults were asked to rate their current life on a scale of 1 to 10. So the data showed married people consistently reported their happiness levels higher than unmarried counterparts. And this was across various ages, races, ethnicities, genders, and education levels. Now, it's not all bad news for singles. The research shows those in an unhappy marriage fare worse than those who are single. Researchers pointed out a number of factors can help explain these results. One is that humans are social animals who seek connection. So, joining us today with more, we're going to be taking a look at more about the reasons why. Michelle Essery, the owner of Full Well Neurofeedback and Counseling in Hoover, she joins us now. Michelle, first of all, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, so glad to be here, Claire.
So, Michelle, I showed you some of these numbers earlier. Does
Right.
this surprise you that married people say that they're happier than unmarried people?
No, I mean, especially taking into account that there are some unhappy marriages, and that's not what we're talking about here, but we're talking about people who have very and um, connected and I guess I want to say happy marriages, but I feel like there's a better word for it, right? This is people who are actually like being together. And so, in that case, that kind of partnership, that kind of connection is really, really, it creates a sense of safety. It creates a sense of stability for us. And so, the fact that people report that that makes them feel happy is not surprising. We know that that kind of, you said this social creatures, like we're connected to others. That's a really big deal. And so, that is really important that we have that support, that partnership. It doesn't surprise me that this is what came out on a poll.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understand it, our brains are sort of wired for those connections, right?
They absolutely are. We are, I know I've said this to you before, but we have a social nervous system, right? Like we have a nervous system that responds and feels safer in community. And so having other people around us really, we all want to be able to have that vulnerable connection with another person, to be known and to feel loved in that space. And so that can be true outside of marriage, but it should and could be true inside of marriage, right? Like that's what part of the design there.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. Do you think people need to get married in order to be happy?
No, I do not think so. I think there is a way to have partnership and community outside of a marriage relationship. A marriage relationship is really the level of commitment that it brings leads to a sense of safety and belonging, but you can find and foster that outside of that space. Additionally, the community piece, right? Like that connection community piece, you need other people. But additionally, there's a lot of satisfaction in being able to do the things that you want to do, to be able to seek the things you want to seek without having to seek another person. And so you said this earlier, but it does show that people who have unhappy marriages score lower than people who are single. There is a big move towards, um, I guess, culturally, right, towards this idea that instead of saying unmarried, which leaves somebody feeling like maybe they're missing something, moving to calling people who don't have a spouse single instead. And so married and single versus married and unmarried is kind of this term, there's change in terms, partially because there's this kind of cultural norm that we should have that kind of connection, but it's not necessary for happiness. We can be happy outside of a marriage, but it's nice to have a commitment and a community. And so those are really the key things.
And I love that. And I guess as we wrap up, you just sort of talk about, um, I mean, the fact of the study that said that people in an unhappy marriage fared worse than people who were
Mhm.
single. You just sort of, as we wrap up, just sort of touch on that because
Yeah.
I think that is a huge part of this research.
Yeah. When you are connected to somebody where it does not feel safe, where it does not feel like a partnership that's really benefiting both parties, um, that can happen for a variety of reasons. It can happen because one partner really is very unsafe, but it often has to do with the way that a relationship works. And if that relationship is really broken down and there is no trust, there is no safety, then that's actually going to feel worse. And it can actually damage your nervous system responses, right? If you are afraid that you are going to have a critical response from your spouse, if that you're going to that it's going to explode and escalate into something really aggressive, or if it's going to be harmful, physically harmful or dangerous, those things are going to be, or even if just, trust is totally broken, those things are actually lead to unhappiness, right? Like there's not a lot, you don't have to look at the research to know that those things aren't going to leave you feeling safe and happy. And so somebody in that sort of marriage is going to be much less happy on a scale like they used in the
Mhm.
study than somebody who is single and satisfied with their life, not having to worry about um, having that kind of negative interaction, having that kind of negative feedback, feeling unsafe. And so their nervous systems are actually healthier being outside of a really, I think in culture we would call it a toxic relationship, right? Like get outside of
Yes.
a toxic relationship and it's better. It might not even be that the people are toxic, but that the relationship has become that way over time. There's a lot of factors for that, but unhappy marriages, or maybe unsafe or unhealthy marriages
Mhm.
definitely lead to unhappiness.
Wow. Okay. Well, I love diving into this conversation with you, Michelle. We appreciate you being with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire.